Alright guys, Pikmin 4 reviews are live on Nintendo Switch and things are looking incredibly good for the Nintendo Switch exclusive here because the game overall has an 87 average on Metacritic, easily one of the highest rated games Nintendo has released in the past number of years and one of the highest rated games for this year in 2023. So in this review roundup, we're going to go over the top scores, the middle scores, and the bottom scores to go over if this is a game for you. But remember, there is a demo right now that you can play on the eShop that actually transfers over to the main game. So if you want to download the demo, try it out, and then pick up the main game at this point when it comes out on Friday or later down the road, you can do that. So Nintendo is positioning this game to actually have better sales than all of the previous Pikmin games. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the scores here, starting off with the perfect scores because there are a number of perfect scores. I'm going to start with the Daily Star. They gave the game a 10 out of 10 and had this to say: the story powers along at a gentle pace and can be a bit annoying, meaning a lot of dialogue skipping for me, but the gameplay itself is great, easy to get while complicated to conquer, and that third-person visual across a glorious designed cartoon world can be beautiful. Its urge for exploration is everywhere and really helps to distinguish this away from the other Switch titles. Now, Eurogamer, who's been kind of rough on the most recent big Nintendo Switch games, like The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, for example, actually gave this one a 10 out of 10 and had this to say: Pikmin 4 fills itself and your time with a rich array of things to do, things to find, goals to chase, and places to explore. It may start slow, but when it all comes together, it really does sing. It preserves the series' oddities, it doubles down on them in some regards, and yet opens the series up in a way Pikmin has never managed previously. It's a fine reward for a decade of fan patience and a lot of thought by Nintendo's top brass on how best to continue after Pikmin 3. It's a skillful evolution of a series which has been left feeling a little overlooked for too long. Is this Pikmin's true breakthrough moment? Who knows? But without a doubt, it's one of Nintendo's best games in years. Now, next up is from Siliconera. They gave the game a 10 out of 10 and had this to say: still, that aside, Pikmin 4 is an extraordinary experience. It's the coziest installment in the series, especially since some of the new features eliminate the deadline pressure and other stressors from past installments. And that's something that I talked about, why this game gets me a bit more excited than the last games. Not because there's like stress and it's, oh my gosh, so much problems and all that, but it's more, it's like, hey, you got this cool, beautiful world out there with these nice graphics and everything, and they actually give you the time and the ability to explore them instead of rushing you through, telling you have to go back, giving you the time limits. I mean, that's just not as fun to me when you put together that type of gameplay structure with what you're trying to do in an exploration strategy type of game. Now let's go and get into some of the high 90s and 90s scores. This one is a 9.5 from God is a Geek, and they say Pikmin 4 is accumulation of all that's come before it, modernized in a truly magical way. There is so much to do, it's hard to think anyone wouldn't find fun here. Next up is from Nintendoros. They gave it another 9.5 out of 10 and had this to say: Pikmin 4 is one of the best real-time strategy games I've ever played. The fun of exploring its zones, its large amount of collectibles, the strategy behind the Dandori battles, and how adorable and useful Otachi is are just some of the features that make this installment an outstanding game. And that's some of the stuff that I pointed out when they were showing off the promotional material and like the trailers and all that, is that the Otachi, the doggo, like the dog really helps push this game along, I think, further than any of the other Pikmin games, because it's just been so slow to traverse in Pikmin games before in the past with all the different Pikmin and having to pluck them and them carrying different things. But with this, you can now put all the Pikmin on the doggo and you can run around the map and everything. That to me makes it a more fun exploration experience, and why I was a little bit higher on this game than I have been on any other Pikmin game in the history that I've been covering Pikmin games. Now, next up, we're going to go ahead and go to Nintendo with a 9.2 out of 10, and they had this to say: Nintendo has grown and evolved the Pikmin franchise to become one of their best franchises with Pikmin 4. excellent in terms of visuals and very accessible to all audiences. It is an entertaining, relaxing, and immersive game that will put your organizational skills into practice in a hyper-realistic and charming world. Now let's go and get into another 9 out of 10 from Game Informer. They said this: when it comes to iterating on the standard Pikmin gameplay established by the first release, Pikmin 4 is the smoothest, best controlling, best looking version, and all of the additions are worthwhile and fun to play. The variety of tasks, which you can tackle in order of your choice, prevents you from doing the same thing for too long, and I enjoyed saving other survivors and expanding my home base roster. Pikmin may never rise to the top of Nintendo's heap, and it's probably unfair to expect it ever could, but the latest Pikmin is the best effort yet. And yeah, I think that with this Pikmin game, I think it's actually going to do better than all of the other previous Pikmin games. Now, the best-selling Pikmin game is Pikmin 3 Deluxe on the Nintendo Switch with a little bit over 3 million units sold, so I think that if that port did that good on the Nintendo Switch a number of years ago, a brand new release with a bigger install base and with a great score can do better than that. So I'm expecting Pikmin 4 to actually sell the best in the Pikmin series. And if you're looking at it from a sales or pre-order standpoint, Pikmin 4 is one of the top games on Amazon and also one of the top pre-order games in Japan right now. So we'll see how it does. All right, next up is from IGN. Shout outs to IGN. They gave the game a 9 out of 10 and had this to say: Pikmin 4 adds variety to the series' traditional gameplay by offering options other than the grab and throw formula of the past, and brings an extra helping of top tier levels after the credits roll. So that is very good to hear that there's extra stuff to do, and it's very good to hear that it has evolved past just that pick and throw, oh, go get this item, bring it back. Like, I think that this game is the most dynamic game in the series so far, and we're seeing that from the reviews in terms of what people are saying. Now, next up, another 9 out of 10 from Nintendo Life, and there are a ton of 9 out of 10 guys, double digit 9 out of 10s here. So Nintendo Life says Pikmin 4 is a sumptuous strategy adventure that serves up tons of fun for returning fans of the franchise, whilst adding lots to entice new players into giving it a try. Otachi is the star of the show in our eyes, a very good boy who is woven clearly into the core of the puzzle action. Series best dungeons, a hugely inventive overworld, night missions, Dandori battles, and post-credit goodies only sweeten the deal. Yes, the co-op is disappointing, and the campaign's not going to be challenging enough for some diehard fans, but overall Nintendo has nailed it here, serving up a magical Pikmin adventure that we reckon could see the series finally getting all the attention it fully deserves. So yeah, definitely I've heard that a little bit, with the game kind of getting a little bit harder in the second half of the game. First half's a bit easy, and if you're hardcore into Pikmin, it might not be hard enough for everybody out there, but still a very good experience, especially since the game has been gone for a decade when it comes to a new entry. Now, let's go ahead and get into another 9 out of 10, and then we'll move on from Twinfinite. This is my first true Pikmin experience, and even as a newcomer to the series, I found myself completely enthralled by the vibrant landscapes, intuitive gameplay, and charming characters I encountered on my journey. Nice, good stuff to Twinfinite out there. Rebecca, she's doing a great job. All right, let's go and get into some of the 80s, guys, and we'll move into some of the lower scores as well. So this is from COG Connected. They gave the game an 8.5 out of 10 and had this to say: although I love the battles, the strategic depth, and the characters, it's the game's pace that kept me hooked. You're able to take things one day at a time. Even your less productive days still feel accomplished. Maybe it's just all the allure of that 100% explored announcement, but I was ready to sniff out every corner of this game. It's a bummer watching Pikmin die, but it's also a great motivator to learn from your mistakes. I was expecting the rescue/resources activity split to get boring, but it never did. If you're hoping for a compelling narrative, you'll be disappointed, but Pikmin 4 is more about the core gameplay loop than anything else, slowly exploring every part of this game, gathering your tiny army, and looting every piece of possible treasure is its own reward. Whether you're a newcomer or a series veteran, Pikmin 4 will be an excellent adventure. All right, good stuff there. Next up is from Press Start Australia with the 8.5 out of 10, and they had this to say: Pikmin 4 brings together engaging cave exploration and a charming world to explore to offer up the most complete Pikmin experience so far. While the multiplayer offerings feel like a step back from Pikmin 3, the game game is too easy to begin with, Pikmin 4 more than makes up for these shortcomings with its adorable canine companion, vast sandboxes, and gripping strategic combat. All right, other people saying that the game is a bit too easy. I think that Nintendo's really trying to bring in the newcomers and make it to where it's not too hard, because people have complained in the past, and I think they maybe overcorrected there, and there's no difficulty levels. I think that difficulty levels definitely should have been a thing as well, because then you can actually make the normal difficulty easier than like the harder difficulty for people that are more experienced harder. So I think that's a little bit of a flaw in the game, at least. Now let's go and get to some of the 8 out of 10 scores here, and this one is from Digital Trends. They gave it an 8 out of 10 and said, though faithful fans might be put off by a more laid-back sequel that's overeager to hold players' hands, Pikmin 4 is purposefully reconstructed of Nintendo's most niche series. A stressful comedy of errors becomes a digestible puzzle strategy hybrid that gives players valuable organization strategies that are just useful in real life as they are on the Nintendo Switch Adventure. I don't know about all that. This guy went a little bit farther. Organizational strategies in real life with Pikmin. I mean, I guess, but hey, it is what it is there. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next 8 out of 10. This is from PlayerEssence, and they had this to say: Pikmin 4 is here, and like previous games, it's an incredibly fun game to play. There's plenty to explore and do in the world. The new additions such as new Pikmin, craft abilities, and more make it a fun adventure. It's a shame though that the full co-op experience is no longer present and that the performance can't be called optimal. Those aren't points to make a purchase hinge on. A fine platformer that will certainly please fans as well as newcomers. A fine platformer. So this person thinks that Pikmin 4 is a platformer. Okay, interesting. All right, let's go and move on to VGC. They gave the game an 8 out of 10 and had this to say: Pikmin 4 is a smart and content-packed refinement of one of Nintendo's most underrated series, but longtime fans may be put off by how long its generous campaign takes to get going. So there you go from there. All right, let's go and get into the 7 out of 10 scores, and this is definitely good to hear because the game only has 2 mixed scores according to Metacritic, so that's the orange or yellow type of scores, to where it's a bit mixed, not necessarily bad, but just mixed, and there's no red or bad scores, nothing underneath a 7 out of 10 so far as the time that I am recording this video, so that's definitely a good thing. So 7 out of 10 scores, there's 3 of them so far. Checkpoint Gaming gave it a 7.5 and had this to say: a curious world of delightful wonder, Pikmin will never fail to be a series that invites warmth and joy with its vibrant world and colorful companions. New gameplay ideas are plentiful with Pikmin 4, many of which work towards expanding the game in interesting new directions. Not every new mechanic lands as elegantly as others, with night expeditions and co-op mode being 2 notable disappointments. Though overall, Pikmin 4 still finds a way to bring about the same glee that has lasted within the series since its inception. That's interesting that night exploration maybe isn't as good, just because the fact that you even have night exploration this time around is a good thing. So maybe it's not as exciting as maybe some people would have thought. And that's a bummer about the co-op too. I mean, I was never a big fan of the co-op, but people did like the co-op in Pikmin, or at least like the multiplayer and all that different type of stuff. So next up is The Gamer. They gave it a 7 out of 10 and had this to say: Pikmin 4 isn't quite the best game in the series, but it's certainly the most confident. With the new entry, Nintendo has decided to wipe away much of the past tedium in favor of ensuring moment-to-moment gameplay is more enjoyable than ever, but eradicating its past frustrations also removes much of the challenge and depth from the game's battles and puzzles, combating its multicolored armies. Pilfering this planet of its treasures while gathering a motley crew of comrades kept me entrapped for hours. Just don't come into it expecting a harsh journey back home to be a little more than a leisurely stroll. So yeah, basically docked because the game isn't hard enough compared to what they've played before. So they kind of like that difficulty that makes Pikmin what it is, despite all the different new stuff added in. And I can completely understand that. Now, next up, and the last score that we're going to be talking about here, is from GameSpot. They gave the game a 7 out of 10 and had this to say: that story, like most of Pikmin 4, is gentle and unobtrusive. It's all just very agreeable and sweet, and there's a certain gratification that comes from directing your little army of plant people to gather treasures like fruits and Game Boy Advance cartridges. The more Pikmin 4 leans into fashioning itself after a more traditional game with the complexion and fail states, the more prone it is to getting in its own way. Sometimes it's enough to simply have a relaxing activity. So there you go on that, 7 out of 10. So overall, the game is really good. The game is really good, and this should be the best-selling Pikmin game in history. This is tied up. I think Pikmin 3 originally on the Wii U. That got an 87 average or so, and this is above Pikmin 3 Deluxe, the remaster on the Switch. That was an 85, not quite up to the Pikmins on the GameCube games with I think an 89 and 90 or so respectively with Pikmin 1 and 2. But at the same time, still a very high scoring game, one of the highest scoring games of this year. Actually matched another big game that came out not too long ago with Final Fantasy 16 as well. So if you're getting in the high 80s, you're getting a lot of good scores. You're getting some perfect scores, and you're getting a lot of 9 out of 10s, and that's exactly what's happening here. Bummer about some of the co-op stuff and the night exploration and the difficulty not being there. I think that would be my biggest takeaway, that they didn't offer that different difficulty level for people in terms of from the beginning having a hard mode and a normal mode. I think that should have definitely been in there, and I think that that could have actually helped out a bit with some of these lower scores, because people did say, hey, you know what, the difficulty just isn't there at times, you know. So I do feel that if they actually had a little bit of a harder mode, we could have seen an 88 or 89 average, but since it's not in there, it definitely gives people the opportunity to give a bit of a lower score, whether that's a 0.5 or it's a whole point, or maybe even more with some of these lower 7 out of 10 scores. So that's unfortunate, but at the same time, it is what it is, and I think that this game will probably be the best selling Pikmin game in the history, and obviously it's reviewed just as high as some of the past games, at least recently with Pikmin 3 Deluxe, and right up there, not too far away from that 89 and some of the other Pikmin games as well. So what do you guys think about Pikmin 4? I know I'm going to be picking up the game. I actually got a review copy coming in from Nintendo, so I'll be picking up the game. I'll be streaming the demo and then heading into my experience this week as well. So I'll let you guys know what I think in the future right here on PlayerEssence. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out our other videos right here on screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.